Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Quality, the podcast. My name is Hemish, and since 2023, I've been interviewing some of the most talented and well-respected quality leaders in the pharma and biotech industry to learn how they got to where they are now. This season is all about our guests and their journeys. Why they got into science, how they got into quality, their biggest challenges and greatest learns, and the highs and lows along the way. Every week, I'll be bringing you a new guest with the purpose of inspiring the next generation of quality leaders. Welcome to Season 3. I hope you enjoy the show. Hi all, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Quality, the podcast. In today's episode, I am joined by Sep Naraghi, Vice President of Quality and Regulatory at Cellularity. Sep has had an incredible career journey from early days in Big Pharma to now leading quality across cell therapy medical devices in a more fast-paced, resource-constrained environment, as many people are in this current economy. We talk about what it takes to build a quality culture when resources are tight, how to lead with empathy and clarity, and how he balances structure with the chaos of being in the startup. So if you're a quality leader trying to scale in a lean environment or stepping into a broader strategic role for the first time, this is a great episode to listen to. So let's get into it. Sep, welcome to Let's Talk Quality. How you doing?
Oh, I'm very good. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Good to have you on. Whereabouts are you in the world? Tell the listeners.
So I'm outside of Morristown in New Jersey.
Very good. Okay. I was in Boston and New York last week, actually. I was meeting customers in Boston and then did a couple of days in New York. But,
nice.
You forget the value of meeting people in person. I always find, as good as Teams and Zoom is, nothing beats a sort of an in-person coffee meeting. So, fresh off the back of a trip to Boston.
Yep. But my favorite part is actually talking to folks face-to-face, not necessarily the Teams calls.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, look, we'll get into all of that. I suppose I've given you a very brief introduction, but if you could give the listeners a very quick overview of who you are, what your role is, and then we'll get into it from there.
Sure. So I'm Sep Naraghi. I am the Vice President of Quality and Regulatory Affairs at a small to medium-sized company called Cellularity Inc.
Excellent. So we're going to sort of start from the beginning. So how initially did you get into science, and then how did you end up in quality? Okay.
So started off in high school very, very interested in math and science. A lot of my coursework was in math and science at the AP levels. I wanted to become a doctor or a lawyer as a result, so I tried it out as a volunteer EMT in Stanford Ambulance Corps.
Okay.
I realized that being a doctor is not for me. I didn't want to tell a parent that I couldn't save their child. So I said, okay, let's look for a different way to be able to help society as a whole. And I looked at pharmaceuticals as an option. So after going into getting a master's degree and a bachelor's degree in chemistry, I wanted to see how I could go about supporting the aging population. So I guess I'm part of the baby boom echo, and so the baby boomers that are out there. I landed in one of my first roles post graduate school was at a pharmaceutical company.
Right. Okay. Nice. So that was your first taste of the pharmaceutical industry. Did you know much about the industry at that point?
I knew nothing about the industry at that point. I knew that I benefited from taking Tylenol, but that's really about it.
Yeah. Fine. So what was your role then?
So when I first applied, I was trying to get into an R&D role, but I ended up getting a quality control role.
Okay.
I had a strong desire to go into R&D after I graduated, but the quality that desire faded over time after I got into quality, because I really enjoyed the values that go along with quality, which resonates with me. One of my core values is order, and so the other core value is trust. So with order, you can really see the structure that goes along with quality control. This testing is required for this lot in order to release it. So it resonated well with me.
So did you have that that value of order or trust, order and trust, even at that point in your career? I imagine quite early on in your sort of professional life.
Yeah, it's a good question. When I look back at it, I realize it. I couldn't put it into words back then, but today, trust was very important. Order, I can see in the way things are organized, the way I organize everything from physical to electronic environments. So I did recognize it back then. I just didn't put it into words. It was just those are the places I naturally navigated to.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'd imagine that's what you're sort of in your 20s at this point.
That's right.
Not many people would probably. People are still working themselves out in terms of who they are, what their values are, the type of career they want to have, and the type of leader they want to be. There's a lot of things happening in your life that's quite unique, I suppose. I know you said you couldn't put it into words, but even just to have those sort of values at that stage is quite. I'd imagine not many people would be thinking about that at that point in their life.
Well, there's things that happened during my childhood that would have affected it, including being raised by a single mom, never having enough money, and so you never knew what was going to happen in terms of this bill or that bill. I got teased a lot as a kid because my phone number would constantly change. So I had a friend, Pete Ziegler, who did become a doctor later on.
Right.
And he said, "Listen, I'm not going to get if you call me from now on. Your number keeps changing." So because of that, I think trust and order started to come out as I need to be more grounded. I needed to be more. I wanted to be trustworthy, of course, but I also want to make sure that what's around me is something that I can trust.
Yeah.
And that things aren't changing constantly.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. So did you often? I always think when you're speaking to leaders, there are things that happened earlier in their earlier career or earlier life that sort of shaped them, who they are, what they believe, what their philosophy is. Are there any? When were there signs for you that you felt I want to go into a leadership role in the future, or did you kind of just fall into place over the course of your career?
So after being a part of the generic company for a while, I moved to a company that I still admire and love, Boehringer Ingelheim. Being a part of Boehringer Ingelheim allowed me to see some differences between generic companies and non-generic companies, innovator companies. And I thought I saw, based on how few years of experience I had, 2 or 3 years of experience I had, I thought I had seen enough to be able to move up. I had moved up as an individual contributor, but in the time that I was at Boehringer, NAFTA, the North America Free Trade Agreement, had come into place, and Boehringer had announced that in the end of '94, that they were closing the facility down in 1999. They gave about 4.5, 5 years notice, which created a large Swiss cheese in terms of the amount of holes that were above me in terms of leadership, which ended up causing my direct line manager to move up to her previous boss's position. And then she brought me up to her former role much earlier than I would have expected. So I ended up being very fortunate in being at the right place at the right time.
Which is often how things evolve, being in the right place at the right time. But you have to put yourself into that position. So were there any particular signs that you as a leader, that someone saw in you? What do you think it was? I know it's a difficult question to answer from someone else's perspective, but are there any particular traits that your boss or your leadership team saw in you?
Sure. So I would say that it's a philosophy that I think, again, because of how I grew up, it wasn't I didn't have the approach of something couldn't get done. It was more of this is what I need in order to get something done, and including changing in priorities, resources, so that the person who's managing me understands the flexibility that exists. And I think that plus a strong work ethic and my love of solving problems as well as working well within the team that I was in, plus across all of QC, I think are the elements that Mary. So my boss's name was Mary Cadet. I think she saw that in me, and she said, "Okay, look, of the folks that we have here, give Sep a chance."
Great. So let's sort of move your career along then. Like, when was your first, what you see as a sort of your real first taste of leading quality teams as a sort of quality head of function?
I would say probably at Boehringer in supplier quality, only because of the difference that it took between. There was a significant difference between directly leading folks and now indirectly leading organizations across the globe and for materials, for lots, for products that we were manufacturing or being manufactured for us for release in the U.S.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So when was that with Boehringer? What year?
I think towards the end. So I would say around 98, 99, somewhere around there.
Okay, fine. So around sort of 26, 27 years ago was your first day. So
thank you.
Look, yeah, sorry to make you feel old.
That's good. Right.
So if you look back at your, this is a big question, but I suppose if you look back at quality leadership then versus now, 25 years onwards, how have things changed from a quality leadership perspective in terms of how this is what the perception was, this is what quality culture was, this is how things were done. What are the main changes that you've seen over the years?
Yeah, what a good question. So I won't answer in terms of how I'm perceiving it. I think I'm going to answer it. I think you're asking in terms
of
how the industry sees it. Definitely, quality back then was the police force. They were an add-on thing to do. They weren't real work back then. If anything, they would hinder a release of product. They would cause delays because of deviations that were still being investigated while money needed to be made by selling product. I think as a whole, I did not experience that at BIP, at Boehringer Ingelheim Pharmaceuticals, but I think overall that was the sentiment: is there's the real work, and then on the side lane there is also quality that needs to be satisfied because there are rules and regulations and laws that need to meet. So let's at least get those boxes checked off as well. Today, I think there's a significant difference, an intentional difference in the way that both FDA has wanted industry to follow, but also within our own industry, we find more value in bringing quality into the process early, get quality input up front, so that it's not a side activity. It's really designed for and designed to meet the quality objectives from the beginning. And I see that much more today than I did, say, 26, 27 years ago.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think that's a common theme that a lot of people who are leading quality now that I've seen over the changes. What would you do you think that's what's the reasons, or what are some of the reasons why that shift has occurred? Do you think that's down to just society evolving or the industry evolving? Do you think it's due to better leadership, better people leadership, better communication?
I would tend to attribute it to instead of fighting quality, so leaders saying instead of fighting quality to get products released, let's work with quality to help improve our bottom line. One of the things that I think became more and more obvious over time was having leaders understand that if quality catches things, if quality, of course, I'm speaking in the old terms of quality is its own department and it's not everybody's job. But if quality catches things, we can use that information as lessons learned to be able to improve, so that we both improve product, improve our bottom line, improve the I would say overall, all the folks, the way that they approach and their engagement in manufacturing product. I think it's mostly due to that. So if, of all the choices you had laid out earlier, I would say probably better leadership, more in tune leadership.
Yeah, which I mean is good. It's because that generally will breed future leaders, and it will generally help the future of the industry, right? One of the biggest things that I'm sort of trying to do by doing this podcast and the mentor schemes is to help leaders develop softer skills, which I think is a lot about, that sort of communication piece, that being able to collaborate. So I think that's important, obviously, for the future as well.
I would say that in terms of softer skills, that wasn't part of who I was the first maybe decade of my career. There was a work persona. There was a Sep at work, and there was a Sep outside of work.
Yeah,
and I actually got some really good feedback that I refused to believe as part of a management consulting group that came into one of the companies I worked at.
Right.
And he noted during one-on-ones, he asked me to pretend to mock a one-on-one with one of the folks that I'm working with. And he noted that I basically was just documenting the conversation. He goes, So he asked me, is that what you really do during a one-on-one? I said, yeah, pretty much. I want to make sure that I get all the facts and I have all the right support. And so he says, do you ever pay attention to the person? Do you ever pay attention to like what they're looking for or what their body language is? And I was like, so as I'm driving home that night, I said, I don't know. That's not what you do at work. That's not what you're supposed to do at work. But of course, every place else outside of work, I'm of course engaged with the person. So I realized that breakdown that you're talking about, where people are more, the leaders are more engaged. And I think from that moment on, I definitively changed my style at work and became much more involved with people's lives, people's understanding, people's desires. And that to me was a wonderful lesson for me. And I appreciate the consultants for doing that, because from that point forward, so for the past, I would say 20-ish years, I've definitively been very engaged with the folks, making sure they're getting what they need out of the relationship, as much as the company is getting what it needs. Their own professional growth, their professional development, the opportunities to move into areas that they wouldn't normally get a chance to move into. Make sure they get to explore that, and I stress that, and I try to emphasize that. And maybe I even a little bit much. Some of the folks in my group now would say maybe push it a little too much, to see how much they're willing to move into areas that they're not necessarily comfortable with.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, what are there any? Because that's I suppose it's a continuously evolving learning and development piece from you as a leader 15 years ago, let's say, to now. How do you think, like, are there any practical things that you implemented? Was it a case of just sort of learning on the job to develop those softer skills, to read body language, to be able to connect with your people in your team better? How did you go about that whole process? Because it's not something you just do overnight.
No, absolutely not. But certainly from that feedback that I got, it was learning to ask more questions as opposed to making statements of what needs to be done. Learning, pushing for goals and objectives. Typically, there's a development section, really pushing on that. Say, what is it you want to do? Where is it you want to be? Or maybe even stating the obvious. I had a meeting last week with a couple of the QCEM folks, and I asked them, I don't think that you want to be sampling, in the clean rooms 20 years from now. So what do you think? What do you think you want to go into? And let's explore that. Let's understand that. So I think it's more or less asking more questions and having the folks speak to what they want. In order to get to that, though, there has to be a comfort. So I'll revert back to trust and building trust both ways, making sure they can trust you. One of the things that I don't have it with me, but one of the things that I hand out to every member of the team as they come on board is Brene Brown's Dare to Lead book, because she talks about braving and the trust that goes into being able to share and share without judgment, share with the intent of good feedback from that sharing, so that we can have that kind of conversation. If somebody's interested in is currently in quality but wants to move into finance, let's see what we can do.
Yeah. So let's I guess fast forward to sort of the last 12 months, which is a big fast forward. But you've done a lot of work in Big Pharma over the years, and you've moved into the sort of semi-startup world. Would that be fair to say? And with that, obviously, comes a whole load of new challenges from both a quality perspective and from a leadership perspective. How's that change gone for you? And what are some of the key learns that you've learned?
Sure. No, that's also a great question. I've had a few experiences with small companies, and there's some consistencies between them in that resources, so especially personnel and dollars, are not present or present to a lower degree. Versus Big Pharma, where you're rather well funded. If you want something, it can happen, or you can get people to join in. And that experience, I think that's a nice contrast between my experience at BMS and at Cellularity. The thing that BMS doesn't, the benefits, I should say, of Cellularity is that you have the opportunity. I think you have a greater opportunity. At BMS, you definitely did, but at Cellularity, you have a greater opportunity of being able to explore, being able to move into different areas. And I think that the creativity is required, versus at a large company, it's encouraged. And the creativity is required in a small company to find ways to be able to both meet the regulations and then protect the three pillars of quality. So patient safety, product quality, data integrity, making sure that we are able to still deliver good product to patients who are depending on us, but maybe in more creative ways than we would have needed to if we were well resourced. Yeah,
I'm guessing you have to, when you're under resourced, and obviously cash is top of mind. What are there some trade-offs that you have to make? Well, if so, what are those trade-offs, and how do you go about sort of prioritizing them?
Yeah, so trade-offs typically are, what can you do first? So if we needed to project A versus project B, you may not be able to run both at the same time. So there may be a need to do one project over the other. Otherwise, you may end up with I would say, an unfortunate desire or need to not get into the nice to haves, but only do the required activities. Some of those nice to haves will help us long term in terms of future development of a product. But with given restricted resourcing, you may not be able to get all those nice to haves on that first go around. So you may have to come back to that and revisit it.
What's good about when going from a big pharma to the startup world? What do you enjoy about it?
Yeah, so it's I feel seen, valued, and heard. I definitely heard. There is a lot of your voice sincerely matters, and I think in all cases you get a lot of really good input. And knowing that the people are depending on you and you're depending on them, it builds a lot of camaraderie, and I love that part of it, because one of the things I found tough to do, I didn't have to experience too much during COVID, was remote meetings. So having that in-person discussion, having them, on site, running into them while you're, getting the next cup of coffee, those help with, those certainly help with the ability to connect with each other. And I think that you can lose a bit of that in a larger company. It's got its own benefits. I'm not trying to put down other larger companies at all. But with smaller companies, I'm not going to say familial, because it's not a family, right? We are still employees, and we don't fire our sons or daughters. But it's definitely closer. It's definitely more intimate. It's more, you definitely know more about people, and you know how to approach them, which is an important thing about if you want to build trust, you need to know what language they're speaking.
When you're in that startup or semi-startup space, and the path to regulatory success, there are so many hurdles that you have to overcome. Obviously, cash being probably the biggest one, but also positive data. How do you go about building a culture within your quality team that is gets the best out of people and allows you to, I suppose, keep the sort of vision in mind when almost, especially in this environment, in this this economy, there are so many challenges, and there are so many companies not achieving that regulatory success. Almost every day there's a company that's having to restructure, or a drug has failed, and it can be so demoralizing to read I'd imagine for people in the industry. How do you keep that positivity, the optimism, and the culture of keep going, and keep the vision in mind?
So I think there's two parts to that question. The first part is what I'm hearing in that is that there is with the limited resources, how do you keep quality? How do you keep quality first and foremost? And what I would say to that is that one of the things that we've done, we continue to do, and we've done, I think, well, is to establish those good relationships with the different departments that we're supporting, that we're partnering with. When we find, I have found that when you are comfortable enough or are good, strong enough partner with the different departments around us, they are willing to share uncomfortable situations with you, volunteer that, because they know they are an equal partner in making sure quality is achieved. There's also the desire to understand each other's perspective. So the quality group isn't the only one that's pushing for quality. We're trying to also push for what the manufacturing group needs to do, what supply chain needs to do, what our sales team needs to do. And then just in terms of this first part of the question that I'm hearing, I would say that in all cases, when we're advocating for quality across the entire team, the entire department and the company, when you're doing it right, when people are advocating for what's best for the patient as well as the company, and not for their own department or for themselves. They say, there's additional work I have to do, but I know it's the right thing to do because it helps achieve this quality goal. Now, the other part of that question that I was hearing was, how do you help keep spirits up? How do you help with the limited resources? How do you help make sure that everybody understands the benefit of being here? And I think that the camaraderie certainly helps, between teams, amongst the team, awareness, that transparency. I try to be very transparent with where the company is going, what is happening, maybe even some letdowns that occur, unfortunate letdowns. A partnership didn't materialize where we thought it might, or a situation, something came up. But that level of transparency, I think, again, builds trust between everybody within the group to know that if something bad were to happen, or bad was coming up soon, they'd have I would say 99% of the times they would be aware that something is coming up. So when they don't hear anything, there isn't a rumor mill starting up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when we put out there when during the biweekly quality team meetings that we speak to all the things that are happening, what's coming up next, what's needed for this process to move forward, how we're working with this partner, what's going on with these suppliers, and encouraging that transparency so that everybody is fully aware, or as fully aware as you can be, about most of the significant issues that are happening within the company.
Yeah, nice. And how about managing upwards? I want to talk a bit about that when you're joining a sort of a smaller organization. Obviously, when you're working in Big Pharma, there are lots of different layers and hierarchies. But in a startup, you could be reporting directly into the CEO or another C-level member who might not have a sort of awareness of quality. They might not probably haven't worked in quality before. So all of a sudden, you're the single quality most senior person in the quality sector, and it's everything on you. How do you go about managing upwards from a I guess both from a resources perspective, but also from a pragmatism and general quality approach?
Yeah, no, what a great question. I actually really love this question. So there's, if you don't mind, I'm going to extend that to managing sideways and upward.
Yeah.
To colleagues that are heads of their own respective departments. I think there's several different elements to that. The first one is being transparent. Again, having built trust, being transparent with them on how a quality decision is being made. We're coming up with this response to this particular issue that's coming up. Then here's what we're using to get to this conclusion. If there is something that's controversial. Otherwise, it's let's talk and let's educate the folks. As a matter of fact, next Thursday, I'm doing a lunch and learn. We do lunch and learns here often to help educate the entire facility on the different aspects of it could be drug development, it could be clinical trials, it could be how supply chain works. And so we're doing a lunch and learn on clinical versus commercial needs and how that evolves over time. So I think it's both in terms of managing upwards. I happen to report into the CEO. CEO is very understanding. He'll take logic. He'll understand the logic and challenge it, which it needs to be challenged. But if we can state, these are the facts. This is the way that I got to my conclusion. Basically, going down a ladder of inference. This is how I got to my conclusion. If you have a different conclusion, let's walk down that ladder and see where the differences are, and then come up with a common place, a place where we can land. But in the meanwhile, in the middle of these individual events, it would be helping to educate folks. I'm working with the drug development team and medical device development team on what are the needs. How do you go about generating these protocols or reports? How do you help validate an assay? And the really unique thing about Cellularity is that people are very open-minded. They're very open to receiving feedback. They're very open to learning. They have a high passion for learning, and so in the DD team, they have a extraordinary amount of space that they've left to allow for lessons to be learned, so that they can incorporate that into the work that they need to do in order to get the product across the finish line.
Yeah, nice. It's a culture that the business has created.
Right. That's right.
What about there'll be people out there that are interviewing and looking to sort of work for a startup or a less established biotech. What do were there any things that you looked for in your future boss or leader when you're interviewing, and what, if so, what were they?
So I would say the willingness in a smaller company, you're going to wear more hats. You're going to need to wear more hats. You're going to need to be flexible. You will have typically fewer resources, money, and people, and therefore you have to have the encouragement and backing of your boss to be willing to teach or provide resources for you to learn the different aspects that normally go beyond what's on the job description. I would say in general, more the smaller companies have a need for, as opposed to a nice to have, a need for people to extend well beyond their own JD. And with that, you have to have a boss that's willing to support that extension beyond. The other part of that, I would say, is I think personally, again, with trust as a common theme through my life, I need to be able to trust that they're going to tell me. Don't necessarily be politically correct or to be diplomatic. And I think with a smaller company, you tend to have more blunt conversations, more direct conversations, because you can't afford to go through the different channels. And because of that, you want to make sure that blunt and direct conversation is something with your boss that you can, that works with you. So there's some people who could be very rude in being blunt. And if you're okay with that, then that works for you. But I know that I wouldn't be able to. So if I were looking for another job, as I'm interviewing my future boss, I'd want to make sure that those kind of conversations could happen with a degree of decorum, but also good feedback that comes to me. And I would say that although it wasn't a small company, when I worked at BMS, my direct line manager, Jake, was very good at being able to provide feedback and say, these things are going well, but these things you need to improve on, and let's find ways for you to be able to improve on these things. So it was very not, I wouldn't say kind. He was direct, but it was diplomatic. There was some diplomacy to it, which allowed me to receive the feedback in a much better way.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think you're right. Like you need to be direct and blunt to an extent, because you just have to. You don't have the time or space to sort of fluff around the point, do you?
Right.
You need to look, has this been done? Yes or no? If not, then that's fine. Let's move on quickly and let's make an action plan. There's almost no time for sort of waffling around certain issues. It's either a yes or a no, maybe, but let's move on quickly.
Right. We don't have 20 products out on the market that we can afford to wait, a week or a month. There's a thing that happens, I think, in most companies which is, there are to the point of timing. There's magical Fridays and there's magical end of the months and there's magical quarters where things get due, right? It's like, I'll do it by the end of next week, or I'll do it by the end of the month. We really have to measure time in terms of how many days does it actually take to do this work, and let's get it done by that time, because we don't have the ability to wait.
Yeah, definitely. Just on this sort of point around the sort of startup, like was there any particular advice that you would give to people that haven't worked in this field before? Because it's not for everyone. It's a completely different environment to working in a larger pharma, more established organization. But it can be done. Lots of people make the shift. So what advice would you give people that are going into this world for the first time?
Yeah, this is where you're going to find a contradiction in me. As a person who loves order, startups typically do not have order. You're going to find that you're not going to come into a structured environment. You're not going to find this definitive. You won't be able to predict your day, week, or month like many other companies. Things will change very quickly, and you have to be able to adapt to that. So if you are in the disk profiling, if you're a high S, which is a high stable, you enjoy predictability. startups tend not to be a good place for you because you do need to change quickly. But if you enjoy in the opposite of that, if you enjoy creativity, if you enjoy the challenge, if you enjoy the ability to move through different conversations, different environments, different possibilities, and choose path A and see path A does not work, so now let's go to path B. And if you enjoy that type of, I would say, it's a non-rhythm to it. There's definitely a movement from A to B to C. If you're a person that doesn't enjoy the same thing, the monotony, I would say, of the same thing over and over and again, startups definitely for you. If you want, if you don't see it as monotony, but instead you see it as, oh, this is great, I know exactly what's happening, a startup would not be for you.
So, what my next question is going to be, for someone who, like yourself, likes, high order, how have you adapted over the years?
Yeah, so I look at it, so I appreciate the dichotomy there. I looked at it as I'm trying to help different companies as much as I can. And I know I'm not just one person. I have a team of people around me that are helping to do this. But I'm trying to create order out of the chaos. I'm trying to look at what's happening and help boil it down to some level of order that allows us to get to the finish line. Because of course, a BLA or 510K or whatever it might be, there's an order to it. There's certain requirements that are required. So how do we help get this creativity, all this good R&D work, to a point of a filing, an IND, BLA? That I feel is where I help the companies. I'm able to bring in order to what is chaotic, and when I'm able to do that, I feel really good about it. I'm getting product one step closer to patients who need it, and that drives me.
Nice. What are you most excited about now then, sort of looking ahead in your role over the next 12 months, 24 months? What excites you looking ahead?
Within the company, we have some medical devices that we are planning on getting clearance for, and that's really good for us and good for the company. I would say within industry, as a second part of that, I'm really excited to see how the personalization of of products continues to evolve. I would say that not that I've seen this directly, but I'm seeing the trend of it, where we're seeing products become more and more personalized. Of course, CAR T, is a great example of that. But there is more and more of that, and I'm really looking forward to see where that evolves into in terms of where the industry is going.
You mentioned earlier that you like to read books, and you give a book to people that you're working with. Is there any specific book that you would recommend to an aspiring quality leader that you've read before?
There's plenty of quality books that are out there. I would tend to recommend more leadership books than the quality books. I think starting off with Dare to Lead is a great one to start with. Simon Sinek, of course, has a book as well. I really would want his book is Start With Why. I would highly recommend folks take a look at read different books to understand their own leadership style. Not every leadership style is the same, and it doesn't need to be the same. And not every leadership style may you may find that you have a different leadership style than what you thought you had. So understanding the different styles that exist out there, and then when to apply them. For example, in terms of leadership, there's maybe 3%, 5% of the time where you have to micromanage. when somebody first starts up or in a crisis.
Yeah.
But other than that, there's other leadership styles that you would normally and naturally include as part of your depending on the situation, the way that you want to lead the situation.
Yeah, very good. Sep, we normally finish with some quick fire questions.
Oh my!
To sort of cap off the discussion. So my first question, you've pretty much answered it, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What are the most important values that you live and die by?
Yeah, so trust and order, definitely.
Yeah,
I think everything boils down to that.
Who's been the biggest inspiration in your life, either personally or professionally?
Professionally, my director, Linda Hun from Boehringer Ingelheim. She scared the bejesus out of me, just by her directness.
Yeah.
So I would say, for the purposes of this podcast, Linda Hun.
Yeah, very good. If you were hiring a successor for your role today, what qualities would you look for?
Empathy, high degree of empathy, making sure they understand how to connect with people. That's on top of course, the required understanding of the rules and regulations. But I think the highest quality is to be an effective leader, especially in smaller companies, is empathy.
Final question: which one piece of advice would you give to aspiring quality leaders?
I would say it's lean into the discomfort. There is you're not going to be perfect at it, so just allow it to occur. Lean into the discomfort, understand it, try to learn from it. You're not going to be perfect on the first go around.
Sep, that's awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your journey and your advice and particularly, I suppose, your thoughts on that sort of startup world and how to build a quality culture and working cross-functionally and navigating all of those challenges that come in that space. So, look forward to seeing what good things that you achieve in the next few months. And appreciate your time.
Thanks very much for having me on, Hemish.
Thanks, Sep. No problem.
Thank you for listening to today's show. I hope that you got value from it, whether you're starting your career in quality or if you're at the top of your field. Today's episode was brought to you by RX Group. I'm the founder of RX Group. We are a pharma and biotech recruitment organization focusing purely on quality assurance. We recruit consultants and senior level permanent quality professionals into the pharma and biotech industry. If we can support you, whether that be in a hiring capacity or if you yourself are looking for work, please get in touch with me on LinkedIn, visit our LinkedIn page where you can subscribe to the podcast, and visit our website, www.rx-group.io, to find out more about us. See you soon.